Balancing a full-time job while hosting 8 dinners throughout the span of a month. That's what my wife Suzan and I did during the month of Ramadan this year. So in this video we'll talk a little bit about the preparation that goes into it and how it's actually quite feasible if you just prepare well and also choose dishes wisely. So of course we all start with the preparation. We write it down on a post-it on the things that we'd like to make. So this year during Ramadan, it started on the 1st of March in 2025. We hosted 3 iftars on the first week. Second week we hosted 1 iftar, and the third week we hosted 3 iftars in a row, so on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. And then on the 26th we had our last iftar, which was iftar number 8, and then the end was on the 29th of March. Of course, we're starting with the groceries, and when it comes to doing groceries, I always suggest to do groceries at different places. So when it comes to buying things like cottage cheese, sometimes even fruit, I'd recommend the supermarket. But when you want to go really cheap, and especially if you have to host a lot of dinners for large groups of people, fruit is the cheapest at the bazaar, so here at Haagse markt. So grabbing my bike, doing groceries and filling my bag with all of the groceries. And here I am actually at the local butcher, which is a Moroccan butcher. And here I mostly buy my meat, but especially when it comes to coriander and things like meat, those are so much cheaper at these kind of places compared to all of the supermarkets. And then when it comes to buying any Asian produce, mostly of course getting tempeh from amazing Oriental, but also when it comes to mushrooms, rice paper, coconut milk, all of these things I'd always prefer to buy them from the Asian store. After doing all of the groceries, of course getting home and unpacking everything and putting them where they belong. When it comes to hosting multiple dinners, which can be quite stressful, the key to success is preparation. So in the next few minutes I'll show you how I prep the ghee. I did this before all of the dinners started by simply melting butter. And I love ghee because it really has this extra nutty flavor. Like I love olive oil and I love butter, and it really enhances some of the meat dishes especially. But ghee has this extra effect of, giving it a little bit of an extra flavor, which is great if you're hosting a dinner and you want to impress your guests. And overall it's also not that difficult. It's simply melting the butter. I do have to say right now, looking back at the video, maybe it was a bit too hard, so really make sure to slowly heat the butter, and eventually it will turn into this little bit of like a different color. So all you have to do is slowly melt the butter and get rid of the milk particles that float to the top. Overall it should take about 30 minutes, not much longer than that. Also be careful not to overheat your butter, because then you'll have burnt butter, which you don't want. All you have to do is take a strainer and add a cheesecloth on top. I had to do this with one hand, so of course extra credits for me, I'd say. And I had exactly 0.4 liters, which should fit in this glass container. So again, pouring all of it through a strainer and a cheesecloth. Make sure to leave the ghee on the counter for a little bit before you add it to the fridge, especially because it's very hot. But once it's in the fridge, within an hour it should change color from this beautiful brown color to this kind of like caramelized cream color. Then now we're gonna make ginger garlic paste, again something that really enhances the flavor of a lot of dishes, but also saves you a lot of time, because I think most of the dishes that I make or my wife and I make during the iftars, they contain some kind of garlic with onions, and having to peel garlics every single time for every dish, adding all of that flavor to a dish, it just takes a lot of time. So one of the things that we really try to do is make this ginger garlic paste and have this ready for the next 5-6 weeks. When it comes to these recipes, usually they call for 1 by 1, which means 100 grams of garlic with 100 grams of ginger. Personally, I like it a little bit more if it's a bit more garlic than ginger. So what I used here is 200 grams of garlic and 100 grams of ginger. I add all of the garlic and the ginger together. I blend it. I have quite a small blender, so I had to kind of like shake it and blend it again. And you really want to make sure not to add anything until you scrape the sides of it, you blend it again. So really take your time doing this. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes. This way you'll get the best texture for your ginger garlic paste toward the end. Once you're done blending it, it really depends on, of course, how powerful your blender is. But after that, add some olive oil, or get some new olive oil if you don't have any. And do this slowly. So blend it again, and then slowly also add some curcuma and blend it again. The curcuma actually really helps in giving it some color, but also from what I read online is that it also preserves the ginger garlic a little bit more. Bonus thing for everyone, you will always be left with some ginger garlic paste in your blender, and instead of throwing that out, make some ginger garlic mayo. I added some mayo, some yogurt, some mustard, and eventually added some wasabi mayo as well, and of course some spicy sambal. Got this amazing beautiful color. Put the date on it and then put it in the fridge. So that's it. We're gonna go to the stock. Again, another preparation, which is great. For the last 5-6 months, we've been actually consistently keeping all of the scrap veggies that we have and putting them in the freezer. And this really helps in making a free stock. All you do is get all of these veggies like leftover onions, garlic, coriander, celery, carrots, add them to a pot, add water to it and bring it to a boil to about 1 or 2 hours. You'll get this really beautiful liquid gold. So that's the stock part, great for making any kind of soup for Iftar. And then another thing is, of course, chicken. I think I bought like 3 or 4 kilograms of chicken here, knowing that we'd have quite a lot of dinners during Ramadan. So cleaning it, cutting it small pieces and then marinating it. And I think one of the great things with chicken is that once you start marinating it, you can use it within 3 to 4 hours. But usually even the next day, I think it gets even better. All of that flavor is being soaked by the chicken when you add all of these spices. So when it comes to marinating chicken, you can use anything you want. Usually I go with some oyster sauce, some sesame oil here. Here I'm adding even a bit of rosemary, a little bit of cumin always. Adding some sugar, which really helps in browning the chicken. Of course, don't forget the salt and black pepper. Adding some mustard. And to counterbalance all of that, add some acidity. I'm doing that here with some rice vinegar, but you can use anything you want. You can even use a little bit of lemon or lime. Also to this chicken, I'm adding some garlic, ginger, and Madame Jeanette peppers. And I shot this video, I think, before I had the ginger garlic paste. But as you can see, this is exactly why I always have the ginger garlic paste, which I showed you before. Finally adding a little bit of maple syrup just for that extra flavor. Also added 2 eggs to it. This also helps in binding everything together and also browning the chicken when you're using it for a stir fry, which we'll do. Also adding a bit of onions that I had. Usually you can add this later on in the stir fry, but I do think there's no rules to it, so whatever flavor you can add, please go with it. And adding a bit more sauce because I forgot that I had another piece of chicken. Now that we're done adding all of the spices, mix them all together and do this very thoroughly. So also spend a really good 5 minutes to make sure that all of the spices are mixed and all of the chicken can really grasp all of that flavor into it. And then leave the bowl aside and use it the next day. And then when it comes to hosting the dinners, there's always, of course, some kind of rice. And that's why I definitely recommend getting a rice cooker if you don't have one. Simply add the rice, wash it twice and turn it on. You can already do this before you start with the rest of the cooking. And then when it comes to cooking on the day itself, definitely recommend making a stew or a curry. because you can have a huge pan, add all of these veggies, add the meat already in the afternoon, and just keep it on a low heat on one of the pits. Especially if you have a large group, you don't want to have very difficult dishes such as like fresh spring rolls where you have to make them one by one. But a curry is great in that sense. You can just add all of these flavors to it. When you're done with all of the cooking, add the plates and the cutlery. Cold dishes you can always add already, and then actually have everyone enjoy the dinner. And then comes the best part, which is enjoying the food together with our friends and family members. And if they're not lying to us, they all really liked it. But we also enjoyed it a lot, not just cooking for our friends, but also spending time together with them and enjoying these special moments. But also for Suzan and I, we really noticed that we got much better and more streamlined in our process of cooking for such a large group, that we didn't really have to come up with a written process of, hey, this is what you should do and this is what I should do. But usually we would go with the flow. So if you're thinking after this video, hey, I also want to host more dinners for larger groups of people, I'd say just do it. Make sure to prep well, and after that it's all about just doing it, because the more you do it, the better you get at it and the faster you make all of these dishes. And then it doesn't matter whether it has to be on a weekend or after work. If you have 1 or 2 hours left, you should be able to get all of these dishes on the table and enjoy the food together with your friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Ciao ciao. Bye bye.